You guys are wondering if I got it fixed. I know you guys are. Don't worry. I just had to take off the noise gate. So if you guys have background noise, I apologize. We will get through it. I will get down deeper into this after the fact. Right. I had this fixed. I had it all set up over the since Tuesday's night show, and I really think my USB ports are wonking out on me. So because it's not the microphone, right? I can hear myself. That's the whole purpose of me having my headphones, is so I can hear myself and make sure that you guys are able to hear me, or what you guys are hearing. And the output is working out just fine. I don't know. It's got to be something with the USB. Nonetheless, thank you guys for joining in Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, with me, Mr. America, the Bearded Truth, Jason Lyon. If you guys won't mind, I'm going to take a quick second. I'm going to be sharing this out. If you guys want to do the same, I would greatly appreciate that. So, having my headphones just so I can hear myself. Oh, there we go. Getting a little feedback from myself. Nonetheless, right, lots of big things have been happening. Thursday, we had the 116th Congress take their oath, right? And pretty funny meme going on out there, and that is that the Guinness Book of World Records needs to be there, because once again, we have tied the record for the most people lying in one place at one time, and that is everyone who swears to uphold and defend the Constitution, but has willfully and openly advocated against it in some manner. I think it would be difficult to find people that haven't. So the Guinness Book of World Record certainly needs to be there, but it is what it is. So yes, 116th Congress has now taken the seat in D.C., and that has created a whole hurricane of issues for people, and it's very interesting to watch this unfold and to see how it's actually going to play out in the short term, or in the long term. I mean, right now what we're seeing is a lot of people being hysterical over. I wouldn't say hysterical, getting worked up and being bothered by what is being pushed by the Democrats right now, right? Democrats came in swinging. They were like, here we go. Here's a budget. This budget's going to be able to pay for everything, get the government back up and running to its full extent once again, but not a single penny will be allocated towards Trump's wall. So there's a lot of anger and angst about that, but Trump has already come out and said, look, I'll keep the government shut down for years if I have to. I don't think it will, but I will if I need to. DC ripe in a search for rhinoplasties. It's so looking at that entire ordeal. What people really need to slow down on is the idea that because the Democrat-led House passes something, because they say, look, we passed it, therefore it's going to be coming into law, you have to understand that there's still the Republican Senate there, and that Republican Senate obviously is not going to be like, hey, well, I guess if the Democrats passed it, it's going to be good for us. And so we are going to see this this gridlock between the two of them. They're going to be, there's really not going to be, there's going to be a lot of feigning bills that are just there to say, look, my base, look at my constituents. I'm still trying to do something. I'm trying to make changes here that I promised, and both sides know that this isn't going to occur. So if you're one of those people that are sitting down and you're like, oh, look at the ridiculous bill that just got passed, or the ridiculous budget that's coming out, don't think that these things are necessarily going to be passed and be implemented. It's really not going to be happening that way. While we talk about this right now, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, you can imagine now that she's finally taken her oath into office, and is now ready to, what was the terms that she was saying? Sign bills, or sign into new laws, and her inauguration is planned for next week and everything else. She's already come out, and she is now, the big story around her is that she's advocating for a 70% tax rate on people making $10 million in a year. Now, the way that she plans this out and the way that she structures this is similar to what was happening in the 60s. And that was that you make enough money, and as you make more money, there's more taxes being applied to this. And she says that they need to pay their quote-unquote fair share. Their fair share. How about a fair tax plan? How about everybody pays in equally? How about everyone pays in the same percentage as everyone else, regardless of how much money we have? Instead of trying to, discourage people from making more money, why don't we encourage more people to make more money? And then you still, as the government, will be receiving even more money there in itself. So there's this real great lack of understanding that has been displayed from AOC for months now, and we're just seeing this continuing on. There's a video going viral of AOC, and she is dancing kind of, I wouldn't say seductively, but she's definitely dancing in some capacity. And it makes it very interesting. The different headlines that I've seen for this are fantastic, right? When you're first in line, or when you're next in line at the bread lines, and then it's got her just dancing around, and you still have to define income. I have to define income, or what do you mean by that, Lynn? And it's her dancing around, and so I just want to. It's good that there's things to be laughing at, and of course an old video of AOC is what a lot of people are going to share, but but the notion behind it, or the stories behind it, is really where we can show people the true colors of what are some members that are becoming more mainstream within the Democratic Party, and that is Bernie Sanders. Years ago said, hey, bread lines are actually good for a country. It means that people are getting their food. It's good that people are having to wait in line to be able to provide for themselves. It's just not a good notion. And then, yes, there is, like D-Pace is saying, the Palestinian from Michigan who, I apologize, I'm not going to remember her name. She is loud and bombastic, right? She was talking about how she doesn't like bullies. She doesn't like people that are like aggressive and mean. And so she says, we're going to impeach that mother effer. Like, is that really, that's the grounds in which you're standing on? Like, she's just, so we know her plan, and she also has a wonderful tweet. Oh, actually, I could have just pulled up the tweet and been able to give you guys the name. She tweeted out earlier. Sorry, by earlier I mean yesterday. Ilhan Omar. She said the 116th Congress has so much to be proud of. And she gave a couple bullet points. First, Somali American and refugee. First, Muslim woman. First, indigenous woman. First, Palestinian woman. First, indigenous woman. Right? So obviously, Elizabeth Warren didn't make the cut there. Did not make the cut there, Elizabeth Warren. How do you feel with your 1024th? Not very good. I agree. Youngest, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Record 100 plus women. Largest ever Black, Hispanic, and Progressive caucuses. So she's trying to throw out all these things. And the interesting point there. So first off, the indigenous woman, of course, because it is the gift that keeps on giving whenever it comes to Elizabeth Warren and the jokes that can be made about her attempt at claiming Native American heritage. But the other one was that the first Palestinian American. Now, Justin Amash, right, the libertarian who works under the Republican ticket, Justin Amash, tweets back at her and says, my father is Palestinian, and I've been in Congress since 2011. So once again, we're seeing that even members of the Democratic Party and members of Congress don't really care about the facts. They care about the feelings. They care about the views that are there. And so it's always funny to see just how stupid these people can really be. And not to mention that the entire thing there, the entire notion of within this is that you have to be proud because of the diversity of these people. Now, I can agree with the notion that diversity is important, but I don't think that saying you're the diversity because of where people come from or somebody's age inherently makes a situation better or worse, right? It doesn't make it any better, and it certainly doesn't make it any worse. It's just a matter of measuring an attribute of something. So You know, if you have, let's look at NASCAR, right? NASCAR made some news because they had a black driver for the first time. And it's just like, oh, is he good or is he bad? Did his skin color in any way change his ability to drive the car? No, it didn't. So looking at somebody's attribute and saying, look, we should be proud of this, is such a stupid notion. It is so absolutely insipid to think that somebody's gender, somebody's religious view, or somebody's ethnicity or nationality even really adds any value or takes any value away. If you believe that a nationality or a race or a gender adds value to something, you can't also get mad at people whenever they say they take it away, right? Because it doesn't. It doesn't for either side of this, right? I'm not a supremacist and I'm not a racist. I'm not a supremacist and I'm not a sexist. I'm not a supremacist and, you know, I don't hold one gender over another. I don't hold one race over another. I don't hold one religion over another. I don't hold anything over another. I keep to the content of what these people are espousing. Keep to the content of what they're saying and their views and their philosophies. And we can see that some of the members that got elected are absolutely morally and intellectually corrupt, or not corrupt, but bankrupt, right? They have nothing. They have nothing to add to this, right? You have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez coming out and talking repeatedly to multiple different people, right? She went on Jake Tapper's show. Jake Tapper's like, hey, you want to spend $40 trillion. Where are you going to get this from? She's like, from the rich. And he's like, all right, so that's $2 trillion. Where are you going to get the other 38? Well, we just have to accept that it's going to cost a lot of money. So where are we going to get this from? I have no idea. I have no idea whatsoever. And then you got Bernie Sanders going, well, breadlines are a really good thing. No, they're not. If you have to rely on others to give you food, I'm sorry to say it, you're not doing well as a country. The more people you have in line to get food, to get basic victuals, basic resources, to get housing, right? The worse off your country is. The more people that have liberty, the more people that are able to sustain themselves, the better off you'll be in the long run. And so back to this main concept. It's so entirely stupid how focused, how hypersensitive and focused on race that the Democratic Party is. But they are the ones that are saying everybody else is racist because they're not in support of this race or this ethnicity or this nationality or this, that, and the other. And it's just like, why do you hold a value to them? They don't. They don't hold a value in any way, shape, or form. And it would be nice to have some intellectual honesty in there, really calling this out. I'm not for, so here's a comment from somebody, and it was about, with regards to taxation. I'm not for taxing doctors, lawyers, and small business, but international corporations and banks should be. Why should banks be and other people be free? It doesn't matter about the service that they provide. It's not a matter of what they do for the country. It's more of a matter of, are you doing something, and is it in our best interest to take from you to give to others? Right? Is it in our best interest to take from you, from what you're doing, from preventing you from allocating that back into yourself, back into your company, back into your services, or even donating it to others? Is it better to take that away from you and provide to others with the way that we see fit? Or is it better just to allow more people to be able to use the money that they have earned through their transactions, through their labor, through their work? Is it better to have it that way? And I'm of the side that we don't steal from people. We don't take from people. And if you want to donate your money to the government, if you want to fund the government, you go right ahead. But it's not a matter of, I don't want to fund it, so you're going to send cops after me. You're going to send police after me. You're going to threaten me with violence. You're going to threaten me with a cage. It's just such an immoral system that we have here. And so there's a huge issue there nonetheless. And I'm excited to see how many people are waking up to this idea and really fighting against this. A lot of those people just hoard the money in gold form. And if people are hoarding money, here's another economic fallacy that people have, is that when people just hoard the money, and often they'll say they stuff it under their bed, they keep the money under their bed. What they did is they took money out of rotation. They took money out of the flow of the economy. And when you do that, when you take the money out of the economy, guess what? Everybody else's money actually inflates in value. The value there is increased by taking money out of the market, right? The opposite is obviously true. If the Federal Reserve starts printing off money, or not the Federal Reserve, but if the government starts printing off more money and creating more money, I guess it would be the Federal Reserve. But if they start printing off money and creating all this more cash on hand, right, that cash based off of the system would be worth less. So even when people are hoarding money, you're like, all right, well, now I'm worth more. Thanks. Take more money out. Take as much money out of the system as you want to. It's not going to negatively affect you. Should sin taxes be added to sugary sodas and other fatty foods? No. I'm against taxation on the normal, so I don't think that we should, as a society, say you shouldn't do this, and so therefore we get to take more things from you. It's not a right idea either, right? I don't get to say, well, I don't like Nickelback, so you buying a Nickelback CD, you're going to have to pay a 200% tax. Might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but even at the notion of that, it's kind of stupid, right? Hey, you shouldn't spend your money on things that you may enjoy that may hurt you in the long run. Don't you do that. Really? Really? No. Do you think cigarettes should be outlawed? No. Taxed heavily? No. Or left for the market forces to decide? Yes. Leave everything to the markets. So a few people controlling the hoarding the resources is a good thing. So the more that they take the money, the more that they hoard the money, it actually increases your value, the money that is within circulation. Yes. The differences are negligible, really, honestly. They're negligible. That's like saying someone owns all the food, so my 1 carrot is worth a whole lot. So when you talk about currency versus food, you're talking about two separate things, because money actually has no inherent value whatsoever. What is money? How does money actually derive its value? Is because it's actually just a common exchange good. It's something that, it's just a note. It's just an IOU. And so you can use this IOU in exchange for bartering, in exchange for providing a service or good, you provide currency. And so it's not the same as food, because with food, right, food obviously goes bad. So you have expiration dates on it. You also have consumption on it, right? Just because so one of the laws around money, right, is you can't deface value, or you can't deface money. You can't destroy money, because they always want to keep it there to be able to maintain in circulation. You can turn money in and they'll replace it if your money is becoming damaged or worn over time. But the idea is that money doesn't get destroyed, just exchanges from one hand to another. When you talk about food, it's a completely different topic entirely. Supply and demand, exactly. How do I pay quarterly taxes to avoid penalties from receiving natural gas royalties? You can. It doesn't matter how often you pay your taxes. You're never going to get away from it. They're going to find a way to find you. They're going to find a way to fee you. When it comes to specifically paying taxes, right? When it comes to the specifics of it, I'm not really experienced in that field, right? I pay my taxes unwillingly. I pay my taxes every year when I get my W-2s in. I pay more than what I need to every year. I give them an interest-free loan, and I try to keep myself out of the government's cages, if you will, that way. I know that, but it should be backed by something. Gold is completely centralized at this point. So do you know what our money is backed by right now, right? Do you know what the Federal Reserve actually has for backing on our money right now? It's the fiat system. It's a horrible system. It's a disgusting system, and that's why, I've been openly against the Federal Reserve. I've been calling for them to be audited. I've been calling for them to be ended. And this actually goes back to a tweet that I just tweeted out, I believe it was yesterday. And I've received some blowback in private messages from this, but I think it's really important, right? Pardon me. When it comes to President Trump, a lot of people may have a feeling or some ill feelings towards some departments or some laws or some effects. But when President Trump says something, when he's like, oh, the Federal Reserve is screwing me over right now, and now you have people coming out and they're being loud, vocal, and just bombastic with this rhetoric, the problem that really comes from this, the issue with this, is that they become the NPCs. They become the sheeple in a lot of ways. And so you have to look at people. Are you willing to stand on this ground by yourself and go, you know what, every day of the year, I'm willing, if a conversation comes up, I'm willing to say the Federal Reserve is a terrible entity, needs to be audited, needs to be ended, needs to be removed entirely, because it should not be up to one centralized organization to be able to decide that something that's neither federal nor reserving of anything, to be able to dictate on interest rates and be able to dictate in the way that the market should be running, which is off of the free market values. So, you know, are you willing to stand there every day of the year and have these conversations, or are you just becoming outraged because somebody told you to be outraged? If somebody is telling you to be outraged and you become outraged, this makes you the NPCs that a lot of people on the right wing have been, a lot of people have been railing against the left for, right? They go, oh, look at this. The mainstream media told you to be outraged over this issue, over that issue, and now you're outraged over it. You can't make fun of somebody. You can't call them out for doing something and then also go into it your same way. Bob, you're not going to get banned. I'm not going to ban you, bro. I live in a block free life. You could tweet at me all day. You can message me all day long. You can make up as many stories about me as you want. I'm not going to block you, and I'm not going to ban you from the scope. If you want to make a fool of yourself, you can make a fool of yourself here. But you're just going to be ignored for the most part. And so there is a fundamental issue there, and I think that more people need to wake up to this idea that if you're only being outraged because somebody told you to be outraged, you should probably have a little more principle about yourself. Does the healthcare reform impact Nuck and Fucks? I know you have a lot of tax questions, and I would recommend going and talking to somebody about taxes. As far as I know, the healthcare reform, the individual mandate, will be reflected in your 2008 tax returns. So if you did not have insurance during 2018, you will not have that be held against you on your 2018 taxes. You will not be paying that individual mandate for every month that you didn't have taxes. You won't be paying a fine for that. So I think that's the fullest extent of where we're going to go for the taxation topic, specific taxation topic. Taxation is still extortion. Taxation is slavery because we live in an uncivilized society, and everything else. But nonetheless, I do love that we have a bunch of eggheads in here and just talking amok and making fools of themselves. But nonetheless, so continuing on. So there's a lot of things going on in DC right now with the 116th Congress coming into effect. Nancy Pelosi, she won the vote. She got 220 votes. McCarthy had 212, so he was 8 away. And a couple other, I think there's 15 Democrats that dissented from the rest of the party and voted elsewhere, right? Joe Biden got a vote. And a couple other non-sitting members of Congress got a couple votes. And obviously a couple of Republicans got votes as well. Justin Amash voted for Thomas Massie. So, you know, the Libertarians are sticking together and working to make sure that liberty is at least heard in some capacity. So, you know, bravo Zulu to them, or congratulations, thank you to them for continuing to stand up on their morals and stand up on the principles, which is always a beautiful and wonderful thing. But there's this new issue, and one of the issues, this is also, I don't know why Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez manages to grab all the spotlights and just go, you're going to focus on me for right now. You're going to focus on my stupidity. You're going to focus on how much of adult I am. And she's pushing for this new Green Deal plan. And part of this new Green Deal plan is the fact that we're going to get rid of all of our emissions. We're going to save the country, we're going to save the world, and we're going to make monumental changes. We're going to destroy our GDP. We're going to destroy the way that you live life right now, and we're going to fundamentally change everything. We're going to just get rid of all of the things that emit gases, and we're going to just merely save everything. And she's like, and I'm backed by science. And it's just like, well, can you articulate on any of this? Well, I'm not a scientist. I can't talk about that. It's just like when we were talking about the foreign, or when she was trying to talk about the Palestinian and Israel situation. She was like, yeah, Israel's bad, Palestine's good. She's like, okay, you wanna go into that a little bit? And she was like, yeah, well, Israel's coming into like these different territories, and it's like, are you sure you're talking about the right thing? Well, I'm not the expert in this area. We agree. We agree with you, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. We agree with you 100%. And I think I'm honestly going to be contacting. I'm going to reach out to her. I want to have her on here, and I want to actually have a conversation with her because I think it would be just absolutely amazing. I think it would be beautiful to watch her continue to wiggle around, not answer any questions, but just grandstand over people. And then I will just provide you guys with the commentary. I'll probably just mute her for a second, provide you with the commentary, and give you the context of what she's talking about, and explain to you why it is absolutely 100% insipid. And then we can continue on with the conversation if she sees fit. She's talking like Trump. I wouldn't say that she's talking like Trump. So there is a certainly a level of, I don't want to say exaggeration. There's certainly a level of disinformation within the two of them, but the disinformation with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is much to a much higher extent. There's much more there. She is much more principled than President Trump is, and only with the regards that she says big government is the best thing ever, and she's willing to say anything about growing it. She is all about the government having things, and she will not look at Venezuela. She will not look at any of the failed socialist countries, which are pretty much all of them, or failing, which is now all of them. She won't talk about those. She won't talk about those situations. She won't talk about the specifics of these different countries, right? While she's talking about the progressive tax plan, she's talking about increasing the taxes for the tippy top, as she said, the 10 millionaire income winners each year. She won't talk about the Nordic countries, right? Sweden and Finland and them, because if she were to talk about them and their tax plan, she'd be like, yeah, they have a fair tax plan. So they actually just tax everyone the same. It's kind of goes against my values, kind of goes against what I was saying. But we'll point at them for their national health care. We'll point at them for their Medicare for all. And we'll use that as a jumping board. We'll use that as the point of, this is where we're going to focus on. Ignore everything else, right? Just cherry picking this one specific part, and we'll use that. So yes, I think that there are fundamental issues with both President Trump and with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I think that President Trump should be really inspiring people or really amazing people because of a lot of the things that he's done. He's not nearly, if you were to take the media's take on President Trump, right, and you try to conflate that with what is actually happening, right, they have gross exaggerations over every single thing that he has done. They have lost any sense of objectivity. They're so driven by the narrative that if you would take their view of President Trump and apply that to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, just take their view, not the truth behind it, but just their view of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, that would be closer to realistic in a large way. She doesn't have the gift of gab. What do you mean the gift of gab? Are you talking about gab.ai, or are you referring to something else? So I wouldn't say that she's talking like Trump. I love it that some of the trolls came in and the trolls have already left. It's beautiful whenever that happens. Of course, if you're a troll and you want to call in and you want to challenge me on something that I've been saying, you're free to call in. Make sure you don't call in from a private number. The phone number is 802. It's at the bottom of your screen. 802-671-5328. Feel free to call in and challenge on the views of this. But nonetheless, so she's endorsing all of these things, and it's become absolutely indefensibly disgusting. It's reprehensible what she is advocating for. It's reprehensible in what people are accepting and what they are advocating for because of it. Like they think that somehow she is the bee's knees and she is there to make our lives better. I have a bit of advice for you. Just because you're paying for something that the government does doesn't mean that the quality of it will be better. Doesn't mean that it's going to be as inexpensive as what it could be and what it would be on the free market. And it doesn't mean that it will make you any happier, right? Medicare and Medicaid have plenty of studies showing that there's no change in happiness between somebody who is getting it provided by the government versus somebody who's paying for it on their own. And the costs, of course, have been driving up the cost for the free market itself. But we can dive into the government infringement on another night. But it's just disgusting. So while we're talking about some disgusting things, I also want to point out that there are 11 states right now that are, I wouldn't say ignoring the Constitution, but they are bypassing the Constitution. So the state of Oregon passed legislation HB 2927 that would make Oregon award its electoral college votes only to presidential candidates who win the national popular vote. If you were to guess, right, Oregon is the one that I've named. There are 11 other states that have passed this. Do you think that any of these states are conservative states? Do you think any of these other states are liberal states? Are they more red or are they more blue? This is a true indication of what people view as what's more important, right? These are all liberal states, liberal areas. So you have California, you have DC, you have Hawaii, you have Illinois, you have Massachusetts, you have Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Washington. All of these states are saying that democracy is more important than a representative government or a republic, especially one that is from the Constitution, constitutionally limited government. So it's not that they're abolishing Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2 and 3, but they're avoiding it by saying we're still going to elect people, but it's based off of the popular vote. And this is also interesting. Oh, yeah. She does have the gift of gab. Okay, gotcha. These states are openly advocating against the Electoral College and the way that they're set up. And these states are often states that are more lenient towards allowing for illegal immigration. How many of these states are also sanctuary states? How many of these states are saying, yeah, send us more people. Make it easier for people to come to my state. California is certainly one. New York is kind of a weak stance on it. Rhode Island's got a weak stance on it. But they want to increase the number of people that are coming into this country that are not being vetted. They want to protect these people. And they also just want to say the popular vote is more important than the way that the country was structured. So I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about what the Electoral College is and why the Electoral College is much more important than, say, a democratic vote. Now, let's break down what democracy is. Democracy is nothing but mob rule. If the majority of people want to take your bicycle, they take your bicycle. If the majority of people in a republic want to do something, it doesn't inherently mean that they get their way. It means that there's a certain level of representation for the different groups of people. Now, the President of the United States is not a representative of the individuals in this country, right? So there's originally 3 tiers for the federal government. There was the individual or the democratically elected officials, and that was your House of Representatives. Your House of Representatives were supposed to represent you, the people. This is why they're democratically voted, right? In your district. When you elect your House of Representatives originally, they were elected. They would go and serve their 2-year terms. The Senate, prior to the 17th Amendment, the Senate was elected by your state's representatives. So you would elect your state representatives, and then your state representatives would elect your federal senators. So this gave the states a view, a stance, a voice in D.C., in the federal government. And then you had the President of the United States. These were voted on by the electoral votes, the Electoral College, to where each state, right, you would have one individual representing all of the states. The states would have different amounts of votes based on their population. You have more citizens in your state, you would have more representatives, right? This is why California has 55 votes in the Electoral College. But now they are voting in the way of the whoever wins the popular vote. So ignore them, because it's just all about whichever way they want to go. So now we can actually see California voting for a Republican, which is going to be interesting. But can you imagine their heads popping off on that? But it screams to this idea that we are just moving quickly towards a democracy, and democracy can never be viewed as a good thing. A democracy is not something that is beneficial for the minority. It's amazing that the party that is supposed to represent the minorities is advocating against other minorities by saying, you're not in the majority. Sorry, you don't get the votes. You don't get this. Your people in these states. So the people of Oregon, you can all unanimously vote for a Democratic leader. But if a Republican wins the popular vote, every single one of their votes was just negated by a law that was passed. And again, this bill is HB 2927. It's absolutely insipid. It's stupid. Why even hold elections? Why even hold elections if you don't care? Because your people are not going to be able to there's not enough people in Oregon. There's not enough people in Hawaii. There's not enough people in Illinois. There's not enough people in Massachusetts and Maryland and New Jersey. New York's got a little bit more sway in it. But Rhode Island, right? Your people have no... You say, look, you guys didn't have much of a say before, and now you have even less say in the grand scheme of things. You have even less say in the grand scheme of things. Because before, right, you vote in your districts, they tally up all the votes, and it's just you versus your neighbors. And you're like, all right, I can rally up people across my state. I can make an impact here, and I can actually affect the election in some way. Now it is just purely a nationalized thing to where all 50 states, doesn't matter. However, you have to argue not only against people in your city, not only in your community, not only in your state, but across this entire nation. And to expect that we, the people, understand, right? Me in South Carolina, I understand all of the issues and the problems that are being faced in California. All of the issues and problems that are being faced in Maine, in Florida, in Washington, in Alaska, in Hawaii, in Montana, South Dakota, North Dakota, whatever state it is, for you to expect that I know what's more important is my view compared to their view, or that for some reason my vote counts for less because my issues are no longer going to be heard, right? This is the entire premise of why the Electoral College was created. This is the entire premise, was because I shouldn't be forgotten about just because my area doesn't have a large population. Because democracy is not good. So within my state, there's a Democratic vote. But for my representatives actually there, it's not there. It's not democratic. It's a representative program. And we're seeing people just ignore this and fighting against it and advocating against it. And you have to ask why. Why is that the best way? Why do you think, and if you guys are in the comment section, if you guys think that you have a good reason or a justification as to why democracy is better than a representative government, feel free to call in. Dixie Firelight, welcome in. There's no S on that, but I appreciate it nonetheless. Scotter, welcome in, sir. Why hold elections when Russia can taint your vote? That's cute. You would have to prove that Russia is tainting my vote, that they are pulling the lever for me, for you to say that they have tainted my vote. Nonetheless. Are you talking about the Electoral College? I have been talking about it, Amber. I have been talking about the Electoral College and how we now have 11 states that say, yeah, it doesn't matter. My people are less important than the rest of the people in this country. Therefore, my people have really no say in this. It's all about the other 49 states. They are more important than my people. And I wish that there was more opposition to being silenced, to being ignored. And if you are an advocate of minorities, would you really want to vote against the minority, even if you were voting for the minority on your own self, on your own person? Right? I'm all in favor of the minority. I am in favor of the individual. I don't want my minority status to be taken over, to be ignored because of the majority, because of democracy. And it's disgusting. It's disgusting to see the way that this is going down. But yeah, so Electoral College, as we watch this happen, as you know, this is something that I've been talking about for a while. This is something that many people have been talking about for a while. We got to educate people. We got to get people out there to understand that the Electoral College is important so that you can have more say towards the votes, towards the president, towards, I even want to take away your vote. I want to take away yours as the individual's vote when it comes to states' rights. I want your state to have a voice in this country. I want to move it back. I want to repeal the 17th Amendment and allow states to have a say in it. Because here's the other issue. Here's the other big fundamental issue when it comes to this, is that people care not about their state representatives. They don't care about their local government. They care about the big government, the big overarching government, the federal government. And as people move, as we see the big federal government grow, that's not only taking powers from you, the individual. It talks about 2/3 of a slave. Are you talking about like when slaves were counted as 2/3 of a people in order to make sure the South had less sway, had less control over voting, over what's going on in DC? Yeah, it's amazing that you see a lot of people on the left use that, and they're like, oh, well, slaves only counted as 2/3 of a person. Yeah, to make the South have less say in what's going on, like it was a power play. You want to talk about grotesque things like, yeah, this person's worth less because you wanted to suppress their power. You wanted to suppress their authority. And so you wanted to even it out. That's cute. And then now you're just saying, look, no one has a say. You don't have a say as an individual because it's more important that the majority wins. Eliminating the Electoral College is a globalist idea. I agree with that notion. But it's just frustrating, guys. And so I encourage you guys, go out there and tweet at people, go and have these conversations and get people to wake up to the idea that the Electoral College is important. I know I was going on some rant and yeah, that's what we need, New York City and LA deciding everything. Yeah, that'd be great, right? Most national force. What about an issue like Idaho, most national force, but only 2 representatives? So when it comes to having representatives, right, this is something that was spelled out and it's explained on how these representatives are gained. It doesn't matter how much land you own, because it matters of your people being represented, and your people are based on how big your population is. Oh, that's right. Power. So when the federal government's growing, right, that's not only taking the power and the rights of the individuals, right? As we see them grow, they start infringing and they start saying, you can't do this, you can't do that. They start taking away the liberties of the people. They're also doing it at the state level. And so now your state representatives have their hands tied up and they're like, we can't do anything about it because they're not smart enough to go, hey, look, you have this compact, the thing that established you, you can't do this, and challenging them and say, 10th Amendment, suck it, Trebek. So the states are losing their power and they're losing their control, and people just genuinely don't care. So we have a lot of ignorance on the state level, and then we have people thinking, I'm just going to vote for the federal level, and that's what's going to make my life better. I have some grim news. If this is something that you find you in any way attribute yourself to, the federal government was never there to infringe upon your life in such a heavily way. The federal government was there to basically protect the nation, not to protect the people within the nation, like the individuals within the nation, but the nation as a whole, the sovereignty thereof, and to ensure that the states weren't infringing upon you. And so now we've gotten to where the person that's the entity that's supposed to be protecting you is the one infringing upon you, and the states go, we don't know what to do. So when we repeal, if we were to repeal the 17th Amendment, which I openly advocate for constantly, then what we would see is that more people would have to care. If you care about the federal government, you have to care at the local level. You have to make sure that you're electing your state representatives, right? Your House, your Senate, and making sure that they are good people, making sure that they have the values that you want. And then that would lead you to having a federal government closer to what you want. And then your state would have a say again at the federal level. So I failed to see how this is not a good thing. It is a beautiful, amazing thing when you have different entities that are there to protect their constituents, their body that elected them. Let the House worry about the people. Let the Senate worry about the states, and let the President of the United States work with the Senate and with the House to protect the nation. Move it back to that, and we'll be in a much better place. You move it towards democracy, like what we're seeing from those 11 states, and you will see that your voice matters even less. You have no control, right? You will have to succumb to what the mainstream media tells you. You'll have to succumb to what the lefties tell you. You'll have to succumb to anyone who helped prop up the bigger government. And if you just lay there asleep with your eyes closed and say, I don't want to participate, I don't want to be involved in this, your shackles will be just as heavy as mine. I don't even know who my state reps are. They have no power anyways. And you should know who they are, and you should, I was even debating on running at the state level, and it's still a possibility, but it is a big deal. You should know who your state representatives are, because they still have control over you in a large way. They still control your gas taxes, your property taxes, and everything else. They are just as important as your federal level. So that would be my homework assignment for a lot of you, is to go figure out who these people are, who's representing you, what their views are. Do you agree with them or do you disagree with them? And then work that way. Let's get back to being an educated populace once again, instead of just saying, I'm just going to push up to the federal level and hope that the partisan politics doesn't destroy my life. It matters with state government, like state house, state Congress. Our governor picks replacements. Arizona, absolutely, right? And you guys just had that debacle of who replaces McCain. Oh, he's gone now. Who replaces him? And it's just like, So if you guys cared more about who's representing you, you would have more say in how you're represented elsewhere. Beautiful, beautiful idea. So who we elect locally matters in federal politics. Yes, they do, but they matter a lot less now that the 17th Amendment has been amended too. And I want to move us back to that. So we talked a little bit about the 116th Congress coming in. We talked about Nancy Pelosi. Trump came out, congratulated her. I think, Nancy Pelosi is going to do a wonderful job of keeping Congress locked up, between the Senate being Republican-led and the House being Democratically led. It's going to, hopefully, when it comes to bipartisan bills, they are few and far between, which means that the government grows even slower. But I know that that's not very likely. I know it's not very likely. I'm almost assured that we will see large growth nonetheless continuing on. Contacting them by phone is actually more powerful than people realize. Absolutely, Ducks. Absolutely. Contacting your local and your federal representatives by phone, by message, is very important, and you can actually many people think you're just always going to get a voicemail. You're just always going to get ignored. You occasionally can get through. And sometimes when you do get through, you have an opportunity in order to help sway the mind and have those discussions and make a name for yourself. It's a beautiful way of getting involved and making sure that your voice is heard. If you really want a democracy, it's because you want your voice to be heard and you don't feel like your voice is being heard. So make your voice heard. If you don't believe in a democracy, if you believe in representative government, then you also should be going out and making sure that your voice is heard, because your voice is important. Your voice is absolutely important. Whether you agree or disagree with me, I don't care. Your voice is just as important as mine. Mine might have more facts and more logic behind it. And that's okay. But nonetheless, our voices are both very important. I'm kidding, of course. For some of you. But so 116th Congress comes in, and Trump is pardon me. Trump is talking about willing to keep the government shut down for a long time. There's discussions of him using an executive order to put up this wall. Huge issue with this. When you say an executive order builds the wall, who do you think is going to be able to use an executive order to tear it down? And do you believe that the executive orders will have the same precedent? That the executive orders will have the same defense practices that what we saw when President Trump tried to end DACA? Probably not likely. It will be a much different situation. Here's one of the issues that a lot of people don't want to accept, or that they've accepted and they try to throw it in other people's faces. But nonetheless, I want to provide it to you guys, because I know some people haven't seen these messages, and they may hate me for it, and that's fine. President Trump is not pardon me. President Trump is not the most politically logistical genius that he may try to portray himself as. So he's made a lot of clerical errors. He's made a lot of vocal errors. And what you should expect is that Democrats are the party of unity. And so should they have a Democratic president come into play, they will work together to make sure that they can get whatever they want, and they will go through any hoops that they need to. So when President Trump uses an executive order in order to build a wall, expect that when a Democratic president comes in, you'll hear Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And the wall will come down. This is why it's important that if you really are in favor of the wall, you should be advocating for changes in Congress. Now, of course, right now it's going to be really difficult with the Democratically led House, but nonetheless, that's what you should be advocating for, and hoping that in 2020 that you will see a new Republican-led House and Senate in order to be able to make this happen. Do you think Trump has an impact on tourism in the U.S.? Yes, I do think that he does. I believe that he does, right? Because not only has the economy been flourishing, which when you have an economy that flourishes, it increases not only the demand for immigration, right? More people want to immigrate to a country that is flourishing, that is booming, but it also does increase the desire for people to travel to the country. So nonpartisan people that maybe aren't involved with politics so much, they will want to come here. I believe that absolutely 100%. Yes, there has been an impact on tourism, and to say it's been a large increase or a small increase, I'm not sure, but I would say from my slightly uneducated guess, but my understanding of how tourism works, I would say that yes, absolutely, we would see an increase there. And the more that he totes about protection and the effectiveness of removing removing criminals from this country, as ICE continues to deport people, remove gang members, as that makes more publicized messaging, we will see that continue to grow in. Welcome in, Mr. James. How's it going tonight? If you guys have not followed Real Person Politics, you guys got to make sure you follow him. Always a great time. Always good content coming from him. But yeah. But nonetheless, right? So I think that President Trump has made impacts to tourism. That guy from UK, are you planning on coming to America? Because if so, that'd be, depending on where you go, you may be going to a good spot, you may be going to a shithole. We do have shitholes in this country. They are aplenty. If you were here in the beginning of the show, I spoke about 11 states that want to just move to a Democratic vote. Whoever has the popular vote, they get the vote for the presidency. Those would be closer to being what I would refer to as a shithole, or shithole state, because they don't care about their people. They don't in any way. But you go to one of the other states, there's plenty of good states out there, nonetheless. And so when it comes to the wall, there's also another idea that got floated around again, and we will see if the House wants to take it. And I've already seen them kind of reject it on a really stupid premise, and that was bringing back the DACA for the wall argument, right? If you guys remember, it was like 1.8 million people will be given DACA status, be able to be protected from deportation if there were children here when they arrived. And so I argued that was giving them way too much. But nonetheless, right, James was talking about this. I was talking about this. Boogie Bumper was talking about this. Plenty of good, smart, intelligent people that you guys need to be following. We're talking about the fact that they will refuse this. They will refuse to allow President Trump to take a win and to allow him to get his wall, even if it means that they got a better deal than what was already presented to them. And the deal that they had originally asked for was like 800,000 people. So giving them 1 million more people for the DACA protection wasn't good enough then. And now they're saying, well, we don't think Mr. President Trump will uphold his end of the deal. Therefore, we won't even really bring it to discussion now either. Here's a wonderful idea. Here is a wonderful idea. If you guys really want that to happen, couldn't you just merely say, hey, Mr. President, you want your wall? Here's the wall. And within this legislation is the actual premise and what you promised us. And then you put that on his desk and he goes, all right, he signs it. Now there's a law protecting it. So it is absolutely stupid that any member of the Democratic Party would go, yeah, we can't accept it because we don't think the president would uphold it. It means that they are just trying to deflect. They're trying to pull the wool over your eyes and act like their hands are tied and they can't trust other people. But it is just merely that their hands are tied because they tied it behind their back and they go, oh, I don't know how it got there. The Democrats have lost any ability to be rational or intelligent. This is vindicated time and time and time and time and time again. 100%, the Democrats have lost the ability of being effective in any way. Now, what I'm hoping for, right, is that the Republican Party can say, look, they're not going to be effective, and they're also not going to be effective at growing the government in their own way. And I hope that President Trump is able to fight for some of the smaller government ideas that he's had, and maybe remove that bump stock ban, right? The ban on the Second Amendment, or a portion of the Second Amendment, by banning an accessory of a firearm, and maybe start getting a little more involved and a little more in love with reading the Constitution and understanding the tenor and how it works. And hopefully, right, and this is something that we've talked about a couple times on here, is that we've been able to take some of President Trump's old tweets and use it against his tweets of today. And so I want him just to really reflect on what he's doing, because I want him to be effective. I want him to be efficient. I want him to get the good things for this country. I want him to be a great president for this country. I just worry about the partisanship. I worry about the hatred for the other party over the love for the people. I worry that that's going to cause too much anguish, that's going to cause too much turmoil, and that's going to remove the path of being successful for this country. So as we all get involved, and I know, right, you guys, oftentimes people come and they go, you hate the Democrats so much. Why do you hate the Democrats so much? Well, the Democrats are polar opposites of me. They're absolutely 100% opposite of me. I believe in small, very, very limited government. They believe in expanding large, monstrous sized government. So they're polar opposites. I completely oppose them. And they say you don't like the Republican Party. Why don't you like the Republican Party? Well, the Republican Party is still a bigger government than what I want, right? They still want to have the civil asset forfeiture. They still want to make marijuana illegal. They still want this. They still want that. They want to have it big, but in different areas. I don't want somebody to advocate for bigger government and say, well, I'm smaller government on these things. Come to my side. I want it all to be as small as possible. James says the president is in the process of shrinking the government right now, and people don't see it. I think a lot of people are seeing it, right? And I applaud him anytime that we see him actually advocate for less control, right? And that was one thing that we talked about earlier was the Federal Reserve, right? When President Trump comes out about the Federal Reserve, I'm like, yes, thank you for coming out at the Federal Reserve. I'm glad that more people are now being vocal about it. I'm glad that people are doing this. I wish that it didn't take President Trump to come out for them to be so vocal and to be so boisterous with it. But nonetheless, I like that people are doing it. I worry about having to be steered towards it, but nonetheless, I'm happy for it. And anytime the government shrinks, I'm like, yes, you will see me. I love it. I love it. I worry with the economy, right? The economy booming, right? More jobs than projected, more jobs than expected, even at the end of the quarter. That we're seeing this growth. We're seeing the tariffs. The tariff wars are becoming stale. They're becoming non-moving, really. Right? There's ideas that, hey, we're gonna remove tariffs later on down the road, until they are actually solidified, until it's in paper that until they're written down. I have to oppose the tariffs, right? I oppose taxation against people. Why would I not oppose tariffs against other countries? I don't care what the intent of it, or I don't care what the motive is, because there is an opportunity, there is a chance that these never get removed. So if they do get removed, bravo Zulu, I love it, thank you. But until they are, I have to oppose them. So yes, I will agree that the president is shrinking the government in a lot of ways. I hope that we can continue. Spending is an underestimated catastrophe looming large too. Absolutely. Absolutely 100%. The spending. We just hit 22 trillion, people. 22 trillion in debt. Ugh. Here's one of those tweets that... Oh, I'm sorry. It wasn't a tweet. This is one of those campaign promises that I've been talking about for a long time. And I was really, really, really... If President Trump was going to keep one promise from the campaign trail, I was hoping that this would be it. And his promise was, by the end of his second term, we will not have a national debt. The debt will be wiped out. I hope that means that we're not having our national debt called upon and we're now, in servitude to other countries. I hope it is that he will find a way to pull 22 trillion out of his bunghole and pop that down and just negate it all and make us be free people again. That would be beautiful. But I worry because came in at 21, we're now at 22, we're 2 years in. It's growing. It's growing, people. We got to cut the spending. Yes, revenue went up with the tax cuts. Why did it go up? Because more companies were able to save more because corporate tax rates went down. So they were able to hire more employees. They were able to do more transactions. More people had more money. Wages have gone up for the middle class in the first time in over a decade. And that's mostly Congress. Yes, I agree. But the president also signed a lot of signed those bills as well, right? The big omnibus from February, he said, look, I'm never going to sign one of these again. But it was 1.8 trillion of spending in over 6 months, right? It's still a large amount of money there. And pardon me. So there's we have to see the spending eventually go away. We have to see actual big departments of the government be cut out, right? The ABCs, they can start being cut down. Let's get rid of the ATF. Is there a reason why we have the ATF? Alcohol? No. Not in the Constitution. Tobacco? Nah, not really in the Constitution. Firearms? Shall not be infringed. Don't need a department for that. Let's get rid of the ATF. Can we get rid of the ATF? I think we should get rid of the ATF. FCC, right? Somebody who's regulating the communications. First Amendment. Let's get rid of that. We can go through these alphabet departments and go, yeah, we don't need this one. We don't need that one. 1/4 point. The Fed just cost us $5 trillion. Yeah. Sure. Right. Let's get rid of the Federal Reserve. He actually has to make movements. He has to get Congress involved. Congress, as you and I both know, and hopefully a lot more people know, that Congress has the authority in order to control the power or control the value of the coin from the Constitution. And so they had delegated this to the Federal Reserve. So all it takes is the Congress to come together and go, yep, we're going to end this, and then it'll be done. So he needs to be able to figure out a way to get Congress involved. Now, if that means that President Trump brings it to the people and the people go, all right, now I have to talk to my representatives and make this change, then that's what we have to do. But whatever it is, we have to make that move, and we have to make that move fast if we want the president to be effective on that. But nonetheless, so when it comes to, the ABC departments, get rid of a lot of those. Department of Education, we don't need it. This, that, and the other, right? Those, let's get rid of all those. When it comes to the social safety welfare, when it comes to entitlements, when it comes to Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, that's 70% of our federal budget. 70%, 70% of our federal budget. It is exorbitant amount of money being spent into these systems. I understand that we paid into it, and so therefore we should get out of it. That's what an entitlement is. I agree with you. I understand. But when it comes to Social Security, a system that was created with 16 taxpayers for every one recipient when it was enacted, and is now at the point where we have 3 recipients for every or 3 taxpayers for every one recipient, right? The burden has grown. And also the value provided to those recipients have grown. So the burden is just growing and growing and growing. And by the time 2024, I believe, was the year, is projected that it will become insolvent. It will become a market in which there is more money being paid out than coming in. Sounds like eventually one of the generations has to come up and say, I'm going to nip it in the bud. I paid into it, but I'm not going to receive from it. And if the boomers aren't going to do it, I sure as hell hope that my generation is going to be able to be responsible enough to do this ourselves. Because these are systems that are a large drain on the people, that can be better handled, better provided at the state level. And then once we get it down to the state level, we can work even further down from there. But nonetheless, right, move it down to the state level, because we know that the cost of living is different in each state. So why is it that somebody from California is paying in for somebody who lives in Tennessee? It doesn't make sense. Let's decentralize everything, move it back to the states, and allow the states to handle it. If we want to stop there, then we stop there. I don't want to stop it there. But nonetheless, if you want to stop it there, that would be a great spot for you to stop it all. Nonetheless, let's fight now. Let's actually move and advocate for these systems to be moved down to the state level, because the federal government shouldn't be taking money in from across the states, from across all the people, to provide for specific people, right? There is no clause in the entire Constitution that says we, Congress, have the authority, the power, or any way, any power enumerated to take from one and provide to another individual, to provide to another private company. Did you just lump me in with the boomers? Not that old. Oh, I love it, James. That wasn't pointed at you, but nonetheless, I think we both know a couple boomers that say my precious. We really do have to eventually look at these things and say, why is it at the federal level? If it's not backed and supported by the Constitution, why is it at the federal level? Why was this not something delegated by, I don't know, or if it was never delegated to the federal government, if it was never enumerated within the Constitution, it falls to the 10th Amendment, it falls to the states or the individuals respectively, as said by the 10th Amendment, right? So we need to sit down and we need to have an honest conversation with everyone across this country, especially if we're moving to a democratic vote, and actually look at things in a clear, level-headed, logical way. And I know that hurts. I know that hurts if you're a lefty. I understand that it hurts logic. I know, but it's needed. I promise you. our country will be better off the more decentralized it becomes. I know you may want the globalist, you may want to have one singular board of people or even one singular world leader running the entire world, because when somebody from China is like, hey, I need this, and then they're like, all right, America, you're going to provide for this, you may think that that's a good thing. I disagree with you entirely. But there's no logic behind those ideas. There's no logic behind a world government. And so the same thing goes to the federal government, right? If it makes no sense here, it may make a little sense here, but it makes more sense here. And the further down the line you go, the more sense it is, and the more logical it becomes. So it's maybe you get down to the radical state close to where I am. I'm not there, but I'm pretty darn close to the individual level, right? That's your volunteerist, your anarcho-capitalist. That's down to the bear market individual level. I'm getting close, but I'm not quite there yet. But we have to be able to have these conversations and say, why is it that this power is not enumerated, but taken by these entities and moved up to this point? We have to have these conversations. Side note, everyone stateside seems to have that cough. Watch out over there, James. I don't know what my cough is from. I mean, I was sick like 2-3 weeks ago, but it seems like every time I come on here, I probably should bring some water. I'm a rookie, guys. I'm a rookie. I should probably bring some water in here and be sipping on it with you guys. But nonetheless, so yeah. The budget is a huge issue, and I wish that more people would wake up to this idea. Instead of just saying, look, $22 trillion. $22 trillion, we can take care of it. Understand that the government only receives in $3 trillion. So if the government stops spending absolutely 100% from this moment on, stop spending entirely, their revenue is $3.6 trillion per year. So even if we round it up to 4, you're looking at over 5 years to pay off the debt. Is that fiscal responsible? Of course not. And now that we're electing more Democrats, they're already like, we don't want to be fiscally responsible. We just want to tell you that the Republicans said that they're fiscally responsible when they're not. We never claimed that, so you can't hold that against us. But the Republicans said that they were going to be fiscally responsible, and they're spending money. So you should at least come to our side, and we'll spend your money for you. It just doesn't work. We have to advocate for less spending, and it even means on things that we want, even the things that we really, 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 really want. It means that you can go to those GoFundMes and you can pay for the wall yourself. You could pay for, you could go on GoFundMe and pay for people's healthcare if you're an advocate for healthcare for all. You can spend your own money how you see fit, but you should never advocate to spend other people's money in that way. Spend your own, not others. If we can all just accept that as an idea and advocate for that, I think the country would be a much better place. We'll be a much more civilized society, and there'd be a lot less theft. And while we talk about the theft, for a last moment, for the last little line before I bid you guys adieu, I just want to point out that because of the federal government shutdown, all of the money that was taken from you over the year, all of the money that was taken from you before you could even take it out, and everything that was stolen from you, effectively. When you go to send your check in and you're like, hey, government, can I have my money back? The money that I gave you on an interest-free loan, can I have that money back? The IRS is like, nah, bruh, you can't have that back yet. You cannot have that back yet. Once we reopen the government, then there'll be a large flood of money coming to a lot of people, and you may be delayed a little while, but eventually you'll get your money back. So just remember that when you're advocating for a bigger system, that just because you paid for something doesn't mean that you're going to get it as soon as you want it to. Just as soon as when you would be, quote unquote, entitled to it, you'll get it back when the government says you get it back. Not a good message, not a good way of looking at things, because it's true, because it's honest. And that's where the government will never be honest to you, or will never be to you, and that is honest. They will never be honest to you, because we can look at both sides of the aisle and say, Democrats said, if you like your doctor, you can keep it too. If you like your healthcare plan, you can keep it. If you like this, you like that, you can keep it. Nah, lost them all. Republican Party, year in, year out, we're going to be fiscally responsible. Nah, bro, you weren't. So I'll leave you guys with that. Understand that both sides of the beast, both sides of the bird, the right wing and the left wing are both sides of the same eagle, and it's there to infringe upon your rights, your liberties, your freedoms. So take an honest look at it and think, is this what's best for me? And if you don't, come join me on the libertarian side. Nonetheless, I appreciate you guys for joining in tonight. I don't know if I'll be seeing you guys this Sunday. I'll be honest with you guys. I might be sending my computer in to get fixed. If I don't, I will see you guys on Sunday. If not, it might be a good week or so before I see you guys again. So I hope you guys all take care. I'll see you guys soon. It's Friday, so don't drink and drive or ride with those who do it. You have family, friends who care about you and love you deeply, and they want you to make sure that you come back and see me again later. So have a great night, and I'll see you guys soon. I am Mr. America, the Bearded Truth, Jason Lyon.